So, a little while ago, I was doing a bit of freelance work for a little known publication called NME, and I had written a couple of pieces for them, like ranking Tarantino's best movies and a couple of news stories here and there, but I was looking for something new to pitch. And at that time, the fifth season of Black Mirror was on the horizon, and so I figured, hey, why don't I pitch a ranking article of all of the episodes so far? I went to the commissioning editor, they loved the idea, and they asked how quickly could I turn around the copy. And, well, I was eager to impress, so I said, let's say about a week. In hindsight, this was probably one of the biggest mistakes I ever made, because I'm about to tell you about the time that I binge watched Black Mirror and it broke me. But before we get into that cheery tale, I just want to say thank you as always for coming to my channel. If you haven't subscribed yet, why not do so now? It'll make my day if you do. And of course, there'll be a fair couple of spoilers for Black Mirror here, so if you don't want to know anything about the show, best just to jump out now. For everyone else, let's dive right in. Now, I should point out, at the time that I pitched this article, I had only ever seen 2 episodes of Black Mirror. The very first episode, which featured a fictional prime minister doing something to a pig, and USS Callister, which some people remember as Black Mirror's homage to Star Trek. And so despite the fact that I knew the show was immensely popular, I wasn't fully aware of what I was getting myself into. After all, as an anthology series, each episode of Black Mirror is kind of like its own small little movie, but because they're shorter than a traditional movie, they try and pack a ridiculous amount of content into just about an hour, which usually means a really intense and fast-moving storyline from start to finish. But what I will say is that the show's first 2 seasons, which aired on Channel 4, were a lot slower and more contemplative than their later seasons. These initial episodes were trying to do a lot more to make you think, specifically about the critique that they were trying to make, rather than implementing shock factor, which does appear more and more in the most recent seasons of the show. 5 Million Merits, for instance, is a clear critique on reality TV and just how society puts way too much emphasis on fame, while White Bear is a scathing critique on the public's perception of justice, particularly at a time when crime is more televised than it's ever been. It's only when you get to the show's 3rd and 4th seasons, produced by Netflix, that the show really starts to ramp up. You can see a correlation by the rising budget and an increased need to shock the audience. Shut Up and Dance, for instance, just makes you feel anxious to watch it. The tension keeps building and building into this complete crescendo at the end of the episode. And Black Museum is so unbelievably gory that I would recommend watching that episode in chunks as opposed to in one sitting. And in fact, that's probably a key point of Black Mirror. These episodes really should be watched on their own with enough space in between each episode, so really don't lose your mind. But because I was on a deadline, I decided to binge watch the series, and it was just such a bad idea. Each episode was taking its toll on me, but the one that absolutely broke me was Playtest. The worst thing about Playtest is it starts with such an unassuming premise. Backpacker Cooper has been traveling the world and he finally gets to the UK, but when he finds himself out of pocket due to being robbed, he decides he needs to take up some local work to build up enough funds to go back home. He eventually lands a job at a huge video game company, helping them to test their new AI technology. But as the playtest goes on and the AI tech starts to reveal a real danger to Cooper, our main character, you find yourself presented with a horror that can't be rationalized or explained. And when you and Cooper start to realize that you can't tell what's real in the world around him, you, just like him, are begging to be walked back to reality, back to the last semblance of a moment that made sense. Of course, for anyone who's seen the episode, you know that when you do finally get back to reality, something that you've been craving all episode, it just hits you with the worst case scenario and you're left with your jaw on the floor. You almost can't believe that the episode has such a bleak ending. It was one of the few episodes that my fiance joined me in the binge watching session for, and by the end of it, we were just gobsmacked. We couldn't believe that it was so dire. And the worst part was that the next episode on the list was Shut Up and Dance, which, as I mentioned previously, just keeps the tension going. Honestly, if it hadn't been for the fact that I was on a deadline and I had still yet to watch San Junipero and Hang the DJ, 2 episodes that have happy endings, I don't think I could have gotten through it. Of course, being the professional that I am, I still got the article handed in on time, but I'm not going to lie, it took its toll on me in the process. Take it from someone who's been through it and lived to tell the tale. If you ever feel the need to binge watch Black Mirror, just don't. Please pick any other show. I mean, it's a show that I love very much to this day, but it is not meant to be binge watched in any fashion. But it does make me wonder, have any of you ever had a similar experience where you binge watched for a show and then immediately regretted it afterwards? Well, if you have an experience like that, please let me know in the comments below.